All right, good morning. Today we're going to learn some fraction strategies. A lot of you know how to do fractions. You know how to add fractions and subtract fractions. So as we get older, we learn that we can have some strategies how to attack these that might be a little bit shorter. Kind of the notation is a little bit of a shortcut and might make it easier and maybe a little faster, maybe even to do some mental math with this. This particular strategy today works when you have fractions that are in rational form. So rational form in this case would be anything that is in the form of a over b. Now this could be improper, proper, unreduced, reduced, a over b. We're not in the mixed form. We're just in that rational form. Okay. All right. So we take a look at these fractions that I've put here. Pretty basic fractions. Okay. And generally, you know, you're supposed to get the like denominators and do that. And these particular denominators on this first problem are relatively easy to get there. Now, when we learn a new skill, it's like when we're playing soccer or football or basketball or doing other things that you do. You learn a new skill. That skill does not replace everything else. It complements. So in this case, this skill that you're going to learn is not going to replace all the things that you know before. It's just a skill that makes a certain situation faster and maybe easier. Okay, so the way we're going to do this, and you may have seen this before, but stay with me here. The way we're going to do this is we are going to, first of all, find our common denominator. Now, when we find our common denominator, notice I didn't say least common denominator. I just said common denominator. Now, the fastest way that many of you figured out to find a common denominator is to take the 8 and the 4. Now, I can just multiply those. So I'm going to multiply those. So I get 32. And so that is going to be my common denominator in this situation. It's going to be 32. And when I have 32 then I now need to find my numerators. Well, I need to make both of those fractions into fractions that have 32 as a denominator. Now, the fastest way to do this, and I told you this is kind of a shortcut based on something that you should already know, we're going to look across. So to get a common denominator in that second fraction, I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom by 8. So I'm just going to go across and multiply. 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm going to put that over here. And there's a minus in between here. So then I'm going to look across here. Well, to get that 7/8 so that it has a denominator of 32, I need to multiply by 4. So I'm just going to do 4 times 7 is 20. Is 28. Okay, so there's 28. So now we have our like denominators. And not only that, but in our notation, I'm going to write it as a fraction with the denominator on the bottom and that subtraction problem on top. So you can see I'm really shortcutting a lot of the steps. And so 28 minus 16 is 28 minus 10 is 18 minus 6 is 12. So 28 minus 16 is 12 over 32. Now, because I didn't really look at those fractions beforehand and say, oh, look, I can reduce that 2/4 and make it 1/2. Because I didn't do that, then that means I'm going to have to do some reducing here. Now, I do have some shortcuts on reducing. This is not the video for that. But the 12, I look at that and 2 goes into both of those. Okay, it goes into the top. Oh, you know what? 4 goes into both those. I'm going to choose a bigger number. So I divide by 4 and I get 3. And I divide by 4 and I get 8. And so then that is going to be 3/8. Okay, and so that's my answer. Now I think that doesn't seem, maybe that's saving a lot of work, maybe it's not. But when you get used to it, you're going to find that sometimes you can actually do that work in your head. Okay. So let's take a look at that again. All right, so the first thing we did is we found that common denominator. So I'm going to write that down as a step. So we found the common denominator, so we multiplied the denominators. So the common denominator, so we multiplied the denominators. Okay, and then we did a little bit of cross product stuff. So we multiplied across for the numerators. And then we did the math, right? So step 3, do the math for reduce. When I say do the math, that's like 28 minus 16. I'll write that right there so you know what that means. 28 minus 16. We did the math. All right. Okay, so what does that look like here then? I'll give you another example here. Okay, so again, so we're going to go ahead and start with common denominators, multiply the denominator. I could reduce that first fraction if I wanted to. I'm not going to in this case. So I get 40. So then I'm going to do multiply across to get those like numerators, to get those matching numerators. So 4 times 4 is 16. And it goes in the same order. So if I go 4 times 4 and that's first, then it's going to go first here. Okay. And then I go and I do 10 times 1, and that's 10. It was plus, so I'm going to put a plus there. And then I'm going to reduce. Then I'm going to do the math. So I've done step 2. Now I'm going to do step 3. Do the math is 16 plus 10. 16 plus 10 is 26 over 40. Now I'm going to reduce. So I see, okay, divide by 2, divide by 2. That's going to be 13 over 20. And that is my answer. You think, well, that was kind of fast. Yeah, that was fast. Some things that you didn't see me struggling with are math facts. Things you didn't see me struggling with is when I divide by 2, sitting there and having to really think about it. So that's that fluency, and you can see why that fluency is so important. Okay, so I'm going to scoot down here to a problem that to a worksheet, and it looks a lot like your homework. It's not exactly your homework. It looks a lot like it. And I want to model, say, 4 problems here. And so I'm going to model 4 of these problems. You're going to kind of get the idea here. I'll use my colors here. I'm going to go through the steps. Okay, I don't have the steps in front of me, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so I multiply across. Now, yes, in fact, I'm not going to do that problem because I just did that in the notes. All right, so I multiply across. So 12 times 6 is 72. See the math fact, that fluency. So, and that's where if if you're not fluent, it really makes it harder. 9 times 6 is 54 minus. And then I've got, oops, that was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do that. 12 times 1 is 12. Now I do the math, 54 minus 12. So 54 minus 10 is 44, minus 2 more is 42. I'm going to go ahead and put that down here. 42 over 72. I clearly have some division to do, but I see that 6 goes into both of these. So 42 divided by 6 is 7. Again, those math facts, use that chart if you need to. 72 divided by 6 is 9. 7 ninths. Okay, so that's how that goes. Okay. All right, so let's try this next problem. Okay, so again, I'm just going to start off with the first step. I'm going to multiply across. Yes, I could reduce this. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go for it. And that's the beauty of this. You just go for it. Just kind of, okay, so I got my common denominator is 36. I'm going to go here. So 2 times 12 is 24. It is still minus. And then it's going to be 3 times 8 is 24. Very interesting. So we get 24 minus, let's do the math, because I like this math. 24 minus 24 is going to be 0 over 36. So your answer is just plain 0. I have no idea what it's just writing in the middle there. Okay, so 0. 0. Okay, so wow, that was an interesting one. And that's one where we didn't even have to reduce. So this method is pretty quick. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and let me try, let's do a couple addition problems. Let's scoot down here. Okay, so, all right, so multiply across 40. Yes, I could reduce this, but I'm not going to. And then I'm going to multiply. Let's just start here and just go left to right. So 4 times 4 is 16. And this time I'm going to put a plus because there's a plus there. And then 10 times 1, 1 times 10 is 10. No, 16 plus 10, that's 26 over 40. And divide by 2, I get 13 over 20. And that's it. It's done. No reducing left. So I have to check that, because sometimes I don't necessarily, like up on number 2, I divided by 6. And so sometimes when you're looking at that, I chose 6, but I could have chose 2, and then I would have had to do 3 again. I would have had to continue to go until it was least reduced. I'm strategically choosing numbers that I know will be bigger, so I don't have to do that. All right, this next one's going to be, this is a good one. I like this. Both of these are non-reducible. They're just unit fractions. Unit fractions meaning there's a 1 on top. So 5 times 6 is 30. This is when this style of adding fractions and subtracting fractions really shines when you get to these unit fractions. Okay. Oh, I did it again. Okay, so changing over here, and now I'm going to go like this. So 1 times 6 is 6, and 1 times 5 is 5, and we're adding, so that's simply 11/30. So that one's pretty quick. You get those unit fractions, that goes pretty quick. Now, a lot of you could probably do this math in your head, okay? And for today's lesson, you need to show the work that you're doing. The purpose of this is that in some of these fractions, you would be able to do some mental math. For example, you would mentally be able to see that's going to be 6. Oops, that's going to be 5. 6 and 5 is 11. So it goes straight to 11. 5 times 6 is 30. Okay. One more modeling of that real quick. So I would just mentally, I'd go, now this one's a little bit harder to do mentally, but actually it's pretty doable. So my mental math, and again, you're going to be writing your steps because you're just learning this. 8 times 8 is 64. 6 times 10 is 60. That's 124. That's 80. And then I would have to do some reducing and stuff like that. But that's pretty quick. I could do 124 over 80 like that in my head. And some of you are like, yeah. Maybe I can't do that in my head, but some of you could. Some of you are pretty quick like that. So, but I still have to do some reducing. So I'm looking at this and I'm still going to think, I know 4 goes in, so I'm still going to have to divide by 4. I'm going to probably have to divide again. So 31. So 31. And then 4 goes in there, 20. No, actually, that's it. Now, you're done. This is mixed. This is not mixed form. This is an improper fraction or rational form. You're done for me. But Get More Math, if we had to do something on Get More Math, would say, hey, guess what? You need to make that mixed. And if you had to, you'd just say, oh, 20 goes into 31 1 times. 1 minus 0 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. And then I just keep that 20. The 20 always stays. So 1 and 11/20. Okay, so that's a little bit. Again, this is you're taking a look at this. It's a strategy. I specifically picked smaller fractions like this. Yeah, some are reduced, but they're all pretty small. I'm going to go ahead and add one more thing to the notes. When would I use? So you'd use this with smaller fractions. You would use this when it is rational form, not mixed. Okay, and so you're going to see some problems where you have some really big fractions. And when you do that cross multiplying, there's going to be huge numbers. And you may choose to say, yeah, that looks really good. I like that anyway. And you might say, I don't like these big numbers with this particular method. I'm going to try something else. Okay, so when you'd use this, when it's smaller fractions maybe, and when it's rational form, not mixed. All right, that's enough of that. So I'll post this and hopefully it will help someone be able to go through some of the examples there with their homework. Thank you. Have a good morning.